Hey, remember this guy? So the electronics are taken care of, and I need to build a cabinet for it. So that's the focus of this video. This is what I'm keeping. If you watch the video, you know that the cabinet is in really bad shape. It stinks. So I want to replace it, and I took the dimensions off of the old cabinet, and I picked up a length of 3/4 inch poplar. It's nice stuff. It's 7 inches wide, which should work. And I started going through the dimensions. I wanted to share a couple things with you. This is the basic design of the box as I found it, and then what I did was adjusted the dimensions. Yeah, they had 1/2 inch thick bottom, 5/8 inch thick top, 3/8 inch thick side pieces. That's what it was. So I went through and documented more or less how it was originally built, but then modified the dimensions for using 3/4 inch top, bottom, and both sides. I wanted to share with you some of the nuance of doing that. So here we go. Let me get into a few details. The basic design of the box, the enclosure for the amp, is I'm going to change a couple of things. So it was done with long side panels and shorter top and bottom pieces. Because I'm not going to be covering this with cloth, I want to have a solid piece on the top, as represented by this sketch. This is a half scale drawing. Overall, the outside dimension will be 14.5 inches wide. It's going to be 15 and 3/8 tall, if I remember correctly. 15 and 7/8 tall. So to accommodate, I need to have the same inside dimensions so that this panel fits in there with the electronics. So I need the same width for that, and I need these cleats, etc., to be in roughly the same spots. This is the detail of one of the side panels. Might be confusing what I'm showing you there, but the idea is this structure in here, this ramp sort of guides the sheet metal for the electronics panel up this ramp into this little nook. This little slat was 3/8 at the top and 1/4 inch at the bottom. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I went through and did a scale drawing of what I was planning on doing, and it kept messing with me. I couldn't get it to come out with the same dimensions as I had on this box. Because I'm going with shorter side pieces and using both the top and the bottom panels to cap the side pieces, what I was neglecting was that the side panel, when I get up to the 11-inch mark, and that angle starts, I'm only going to be pushing back so far on that side panel. The rest of that is going to be, I'm not sure if you can see it, but the 3/4 inch top piece. So that makes up the difference that I was lost on. Anyway, things all make sense. If you have a scale drawing, doesn't matter if it's half scale, angles are still the same. 18 degrees is 18 degrees. And I think I know what I'm doing now. So I can cut my side pieces, I can cut my top. I think what I'll do is I'll try and cut the top with the 18 degree already along the edge that's going to mate up against here. And hopefully everything will turn out nice and square. I did a detailed sketch of the sheet metal for the electronics, and it has a 16 degree angle. So the ramp in the box is at about 3.5 degrees. That's this angle here. And that makes about 20 degrees. I chose to go ahead and go with the 18 degrees that is in the original. Try and keep it as original as possible so I don't outsmart myself. Because I think one of the tricks to this is the sheet metal has to be able to tuck in here and slide under. Tuck in under this back support. And then slide up that angle. And if I try and get too clever, I'll probably outsmart myself. Well, there are a number of ways to do this. I laid out my guideline and my cut line. The first cut I'm going to make will be with a skill saw. I don't have a chop saw, so on the table saw I don't want to be dealing with a 5-foot long piece of wood trying to get a perpendicular cut. This is my reference edge. When this was ripped at the lumberyard, they ended up having it taper from about 7.5 inches here to just under 7 inches at the opposite end. That's not going to be a problem, that just under 7 part, because I'll use this part for the way that's narrow. I'll use that on the top where I'm going to be beveling that back anyway. Anyway, this isn't square, so I drew a square line so I have a rough idea of how much I need to take off to square that end up to my reference edge. And then I can rip, referencing this surface against the rail, I can rip along here and get my 7 inches. And then I can use my T-square to, compound, whatever you call it, to get this squared up and to get this square at the correct length. And then I can sort of repeat the process on my second piece, and I'll have my 2 sides done. And these I'm cutting to 14 3/8 long. Okay, this is going to be really noisy when I turn on the vacuum. I'm going to try and handle the dust as much as possible by having the vacuum grab some of it. Also, the skill saw is going to make a lot of noise. I did my laser shoot, and it looks like my reference is in the right spot. I got the blade up close, and it would appear that I'm going to cut to the correct line. So I'm going to go with this cut. I'll probably bump into this once I get through the cut, but push it out of the way. Okay, so that cut right to the line. This is my reference edge, and I'm going to square up this surface and then cut to the length at the correct squareness. I might actually just go ahead and cut off my second piece for my second side. This is the second side piece cut. To roughly the same length. I've got the reference surface marked for both, so I can rip them to the correct width and get the accurate 90-degree cuts on both ends. Now this cut is going to separate the top and bottom pieces. Now let's square up this surface. I got everything else cut to length the same way that I showed you with the first couple pieces, and so you can see, if you look closely, you can see a little overhang here. That's about what has to come off of the side pieces. Well, I really don't know if this is the best way to make this bevel cut, but this is the way I've done it on the first piece, and I'm going to try and match it on the second. So wish me luck. Two pieces that are at least very similar, and I think that'll work out. My plan was to just glue these pieces in. It's not a bad plan. So it hit me, why not use little 8 by 3/4 screws, sink them a little bit. Just use a little bit of the screw into the side piece, ramp down, meaning it down is that way, forward that way. I just need a crude center mark, which is what I'm going to get with this. Close enough, and about 3 inches apart, so like there and there. Nothing too fancy. I've taken off the other side. Remember, it was just clamped in place. And I can do my inside work easier this way because I can get my drill down in here, and I can also do the inside work on this easier. Through this block, I'll use this block, clamp it in place, and transfer those holes into the side piece. That'll give me my pilot holes for the wood screws. So it looks to me like a good approach is to go ahead and screw in the bottom rail as well. Use the screws as the clamp. And keep doing that on these parts. I've decided to leave this thick. I was thinking about skinning this down and this piece too to make it more like the original design. It's not necessary, and I like the way the speaker is going to fit with these thicknesses for the soundboard. I'm clamping the bottom slat in preparation for drilling the transferring the holes to put the screws in, and then I'll glue it in place. And I wanted to comment, you know that it's flush when it feels right. It just feels right. I mean, you can slide along it. You can use a reference of some kind. To me, it's when it feels right. You know you're going to be sanding this a little bit. But that's pretty pure. We'll see how that works out now. Don't want to go too deep. Go to a slower speed for the clearance drill. I've already drilled these two. This is the third clearance drill. Nothing too fancy. You can run this backwards. Sounds crazy, but and kind of see what it does. It leaves a little bit of an imprint. So what I need to do is just run it forwards really slow now, because I don't really want to drill a 5/16 or a 21/64 diameter hole. Now I can run it backwards, and I should be a pretty good spot face, or you know, over the right countersink for that. Well, how about that? I've decided that the 1.5 inch long number 8 screw is just about perfect. it goes about halfway into the slat. Got the blue tape on here. It's kind of flimsy, but what I want to do now, I've applied glue. Let me get the excess off here. Good. We have an immature puppy running rampant upstairs. Hopefully she doesn't do too much damage. She's being tended to, but on with the project. Let's see. This is the speaker soundboard bracket or slat. The one with the notch and the angle. So I've applied a more conservative amount of glue. Okay. That wants to go right around there. Not too bad. This Kalamazoo cabinet is taking shape. This is a dry fit. Ramp pieces. We'll go like that. Okay, I guess I'm alright. Get that right on your tape. It was a little more forgiving the other way, but this is a good fit. Good. So this is the front. That makes this the rear. This is going to go in like this. Okay, dry this. It's a lot of torque. Now there's nothing perfect about the way this is going, but there are some things that are going pretty well. So this slat that holds the speaker soundboard is flush at both ends to that's the right side piece. And I'm clamping it in place. I'm actually clamping it in place, including the table. It's not glued yet. Pretty good. Still okay to cross your fingers, even though you think you sort of know what you're doing. I have to leave this clamped up for about 24 hours. I want to get these pieces put in. Couple of quick thoughts on this. If I was going to make a bunch more of these, I would probably make a template that would come up in here. So when it's time to place the little scutcheon piece and the ramp piece, I would have a wedge-shaped piece in here. Something that is, you know, a block of wood that is the shape of the sheet metal. The things I would change, you know, these little deviations here and here that came about as a result of, you know, a little bit of shifting, you could do away with likewise by having a template for that, or maybe just gluing and clamping instead of screwing it all. A couple important things have come in. I got the speaker, the 10-inch speaker I plan to use for this project. This is a Jensen Jet, sold as a Jensen Falcon, and it says Jet on the sticker on the magnet. Made in Italy. It has a green colored cone. Seems like it has a nice resonant tone. I wanted to deaden the sound beyond what you would normally get with the original design of this cabinet. So I selected 3/4 inch thick Baltic birch. If you're not familiar with Baltic birch plywood, it's very high quality, virtually no voids. I'll try and give you a close-up picture of what the edge looks like, but it's many ply. I think this is either 11 or 13 ply, and it's virtually void-free. This is B/BB, which means this surface is good with no plugs, and the BB surface is allowed to have a couple of plugs here or there. Anyway, this one happens to look really good on both sides. And what I need to do is make that soundboard that's going to fit in here. For the back panel, I chose 1/4 inch thick material, which is the same as the original design. I went ahead and picked up Baltic birch for this as well. It's going to cut down on the spurious resonance. So this cabinet, this poplar hardwood surround cabinet, is going to give the speaker some character, some personality. But it shouldn't be too annoying. It should be a nice tonal quality. The Baltic birch soundboard, the 3/4 inch, will sort of deaden any vibrations as much as possible coming directly from the speaker acting on the soundboard. The soundboard will be essentially acoustically dead. And then the little Baltic birch plugs in the back, they'll be the same size, so there will be an opening still in the center. There's just a panel up top and a panel down below. And so aesthetically this should be rather pleasing, and the acoustics should be pretty good. Guitar amps aren't supposed to be completely without color, so I'm pretty happy with all the choices I've made. So one other component that I don't yet have, I ordered grill cloth. I chose a grill cloth that I think is going to be a nice balance aesthetically, and be good and be acoustically. So we'll see when that comes in how it looks. I had ordered a swatch of Fender Classic, I think it was blue, white, and black grill cloth that I thought would be a match, and it had the same overall appearance, but I didn't like the consistency of it. It was sort of like chicken wire, you know, window screen material with just some colors added in. It wasn't dense enough for my liking. Now I know it lets all the sound through, and with this nice Baltic birch, it's not like I'm trying to cover it up. In fact, I'm toying with the idea of going with just the appearance of the Baltic birch, but you want to protect the speaker from stuff. So, I have decisions to make still. We're going to see how things go together. The first order of business is to cut out the soundboard, mount the speaker, and dry fit everything without the grill cloth, and see how it sounds. Recapping a little bit, the reason I use a skill saw for a cut like this is because I don't have the table saw set up with an extended rail. So I don't have a way to start the part off the saw and get it in running true against a rail before it hits the blade. This is my improvised way of doing it. Okay. Now I'm cutting the 10 7/8 tall dimension for the soundboard. And I have the rail set up at 10 7/8. And I confirm by sighting along the line and then the blade that my cut line is on the proper side of the wheel. I adjust the blade height to make sure I have a couple of teeth coming through. I have plenty of room to hold the piece here and guide it through. So I'm going to hold the workpiece, and it's time to rock and roll. Ordinarily, I would have just let this piece drop so I wasn't reaching on the blade, but I could see it was safe to do so, and I don't want to just drop a good piece of Baltic birch plywood. I'm notching the corners because I made the support rails, the ramp rails, go all the way up to the soundboard braces, and I like that idea, so I'm notching the soundboard. Now the other corner. Let's do a quick test fit. Beauteous. That's very nice. It's going to look good when this is covered with cloth. We're not going to see any gaps. That is beautiful. Just have to check the geometry of the cleats that sit in the back here, because when they're in place, it makes fishing this in and out a little hard. So I'll go ahead and make a line here, kind of a keep out line. And we can modify the geometry if we need to. I may put an angle like that on that board. God, I'm loving this. Very nice. I showed you making the soundboard for the speaker. I went ahead and made these little braces that are used to bond in or to screw in the two back panel pieces. A couple little cleats top and bottom, and then two side rails. And now to make the two pieces that go in the rear, top and bottom, they need to be 12 7/8 long and 5 inches wide. So I'm going to be running this end against the rail. I'll have my hands in here, nice and safe. And I've made my measurements very carefully, so I'm ready to go to rip this to 5 inches wide. Hey, tape measure says right on 5 inch. I usually trust steel rule. It's actually that says right at 5 inch, perfect width. So now I cut my lengths out of there. Cutting the rear of cabinet enclosure pieces to length. This is how I do it. I've struck my line right at the 12 7/8 from this edge. I'm going to use the square of the compound, whatever you want to call it, and I put it right up against the wheel with the power off, obviously, and check that these teeth are going to come in just to the outside of my cut line. And now I'll flip on the power. I've lowered the wheel to about the right height. And that came in right on the line. So that's my 12 7/8. I'll do it again. Performing a quick dry fit to make sure the speaker and everything else lines up, fits in. I'm glad I did it. I probably want to bias the speaker a little bit this way, south of being centered vertically. And it can be centered left and right with just a little bit of clearance between the power transformer and the cage. And the output transformers over here, so I'm putting the terminals over here. May be able to use the original leads without having to splice any lengths onto them. The tube's clear. I'm pretty happy about the way things look. So, we're styling. Little update from the project. I'm cutting the soundboard hole for the speaker. With this 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood, I thought about keeping a brace going across, but I don't think it's necessary, so I'm just cutting a circular hole out. It should be plenty stiff enough because of the thickness. And I couldn't find my good compass, so I laid it out with kind of a cheap compass, and I double checked with measurements in. I traced around the perimeter of the speaker, and then I measured in the correct distance for a 9-inch hole, and then I drilled 2 big starting holes to get the blade in. And I'm about to make it to the halfway point. So that cut's done. And we've got a nice soundboard for the speaker. This is my clamp set up to transfer holes from the soundboard for the speaker into the cabinet. So I just transferred the whole centers through with a little brick punch, and then I sort of angle drilled instead of straight the pilot holes for the screws so they can come in from a bit of an angle. I'm about to fasten them in. Well, the first fastener went in pretty smoothly. I want to make sure I find the pilot hole for the second one. That's pretty smooth also. Let's go ahead and get this one. There we go. continuing the dry fit of the speaker. Just the last little bit of torque for this one. Okay, well, let's just make sure these are all torqued in. Okay. So these number 8 screws are going about a 1/2 inch into the 3/4 inch Baltic birch. They seem to be holding very well. You can put the electronics in, fire it up, make sure that everything is working as well as I think it is, and then we'll tear it apart and put the grill cloth and do the finish work.